Good afternoon. How are you? Well, it's in the 70s. It's sunny, and look at that. The sky is blue. It's beautiful out. I listened to some of the hearings today on Judge Jackson, and there are several categories of speeches. That is to say, the members of the Judiciary Committee, well, they gave speeches. Some were stream of conscience, some were good, some were not. The first group that I just found annoying and beneath the ceremony was those who posture. I mean, telling a nominee for the Supreme Court, you do know there are three branches of government. Are they kidding me? Who are they talking to? It's almost as if they were discovering it for the first time. Trying to find something to say to tell America. So we saw that. The second group were those who were campaigning, Senators Hawley and Senator Cruz. It's hard to say who was worse, but they were both in campaign mode. They weren't talking to the nominee. They were talking to, quote, America, because they would like to supplant Trump and be the nominee of their party in the next presidential election for the Republicans. Well, they're a pretty sad pair. But let's talk about Hawley a little bit. Hawley came out and made this remark before the hearing that he was upset with the nominee because she was a supporter of porn. And the basis for this was the fact that as a member of the Sentencing Commission, she asked questions about how they weigh the different aspects for the purposes of deciding by the numbers and by statistics what punishment is appropriate in a porn case. And since he said that, Republicans and Democrats alike criticized him because she did not express support for porn. But that's what he said. And he said it again today at the hearing. So what do you expect from him anyhow? And it always strikes me, and I said this before, ironic, that a fella who seemed to collaborate with those who sought to overthrow the government, that is Senator Hawley, I would think he'd want to be kinder toward defense counsel because he's probably going to need one someday if our government ever figures out how to actually prosecute the wrongdoers who tried to overthrow our government. Then the second one is Cruz. And I don't know how you deal with him in this sense. He was a law clerk himself on the Supreme Court. He has excuse me, I think I'm allergic. He was a law clerk on the Supreme Court. He went to, a named law school. And he comes in and he says things that remind me of Cicero. Cicero had a figure of speech called praetorian. And what it basically was is he says, I pass over these things to get to something else. I'll give you an example. Cruz is a senator from Texas. And I won't comment on the fact that he steals money, lies to the people, and beats his wife. But I only want to talk today about how he's mishandled this nomination before the Judiciary Committee. Okay, now I'm not saying the first things were true, but the praetorian is you get to prejudice your audience against a person, but you don't really discuss those things. I'm not going to discuss those things, and you go on to the next thing. Well, how did Cruz do that? Cruz did something interesting today. What he did was he said, we're not going to go into the background the way the Democrats did of this one, that one, and the other one. We're not going to deal with the kinds of stuff that Biden allowed to happen when he considered the judicial nominee Thomas. No, we're going to only talk about the matters that come before the court that are uppermost in our mind today. What kind of a guy is that? So I think he and Hawley were as bad as could be. Then there were others, and the others I thought fit in a special category. And that category was, and maybe it is necessary given the kind of banal remarks and then the hidden attacks or not so hidden attacks by Hawley and Cruz. We have those Republicans and Democrats who speak about her achievements, hold her up to a country that's hungry to find law and justice and judges, all part of the same entity, somebody that they can trust to decide the law and to go forward with it. Now, it's always bothered me at these hearings in which, judges say things like, I look at the facts, I look at the law, I match them up, and I make a decision. That's misleading. It's become a rite of passage, however, because what really goes on is you look at those things and you say, no court has ever decided this before. That's the problem. The Supreme Court looks at cases that were decided one way in one of our circuit courts, say the Second Circuit, and another way in the D.C. Circuit. And so there's a split between the circuits. And it goes to the Supreme Court, and they have to figure out what is the one law that should apply across all the circuits. And when they do that, the test sounds like, if you ever took one of these tests either for the, to get into law school or something, they say A is to B as B is to C. And you have to line those up to make that similarity. So what a judge does, a good judge does, at every level of the court, but at the Supreme Court particularly, is looks at those things that are similar and tries to fashion a law that fits that is fair, that is just. And if they do that, that's what lawyers do. That's what judges do. And now another thing that's upsetting to me is for senators to say things like, well, they make up the law, and this all happened in the 60s, and so, whoa, stop the music. The Bill of Rights was appended after the Constitution was written in secret. Nobody had any notes on the proceedings made public until 40 years after that happened. And, famous names around the country at that time, in the 1780s through 1789, they were asking, what do we want in a Bill of Rights so that we will support this document? And, first one was freedom of speech against a terrible government. The second one was a right to bear arms as militia, not an individual right to bear arms. And one by one, there are these rights. And why are they called rights? They're called rights that an individual may assert against the mass of the government for its wrong against that individual. So when you say the nation doesn't support this decision, no, maybe not, because the decision focuses on an individual who asserts its right to be heard on a matter that the general public may not agree to. And so that's why we have such Sturm und Drang about Roe v. Wade, about the Second Amendment and so forth. And the question is, how in the year, to pick your year, 2022, are we to understand what was written in 1787 plus and now has to, on modern times, apply common sense to interpret that law? Now, I don't know how the judge will handle this. That is to say, will she decide, I'm going to sit here and do the drill and get on the court? Or is she going to speak her mind a little bit and explain some of these same things? I would like the latter, particularly if she has the votes in the Democratic caucus. The second thing that's going on today that's distressing is the situation in Ukraine. It's in a terrible way. Plainly, Putin has decided he's going for the whole country. There will be no settlement or agreement. And the question is, what will he do after that? And I think he wants to set the stage, set the table for don't mess with me as the leader of Russia. We will fight for our historic right, his thinking, to reunify the Soviets. So those are the two things that are on my mind. I'm excited because I think no matter how bad some of these people are in the Judiciary Committee who'll be talking and jabbering for the next several days, that Jackson will make it to the Supreme Court. And that's a good thing. And as for Ukraine, I would hope America will find some way to avoid the bloodshed that's coming around the corner, and it's going to be pretty terrible. And I do blame us in part for standing by while these terrible things are going on. This human tragedy is unfolding before us, and we're standing on the sideline with our arms crossed, saying, we're concerned about what he'd do to us. Doesn't sound very American to me, but my hat's off, although I'm not wearing one today, to Zelensky. He's the man of the hour. We need more men and women like him who care to fight for what's right and what's important in the world. We don't have enough of them. So that's all I got to say today. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.